Hello everyone and welcome to the Mortgage Administrator online event. My name is Anna Sagar, Deputy Editor for Mortgage Solutions and Editor for Specialist Lending Solutions. I'm joined today by Laura Underdown, HSBC Corporate Account Manager, to talk about lender requirements and improving efficiency in the submission process. We will talk about the most common challenges that lead to delays, as well as tips and guidance on how to make the submission process more seamless. There will be some time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, so please submit any questions that you have and we will do our best to answer them. And on that, over to you, Laura.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. So first of all, I just want to say I'm delighted to spend some time with you to run through packaging requirements and getting cases right first time. Now, I think that packaging is one of the most important parts to the mortgage application process, and it can make a difference between a great customer experience and what might be deemed a poor experience, which ultimately leads to increased recommendations and more potential business. So today, Alex, if I can have the next slide, just wanted to run through the objectives and the agenda for today. So as Anna's already said, we want to look at the customer impact of offer delays. As I've already said, a timely offer can lead to increased business, but delayed offer can reduce business and of course cause detriment to the client, potentially losing out on their dream home, going on to an SVR, on a remortgage and paying increased payments for a period of time. I also want to look at the common errors that we see as a lender. Now, every lender has their own policies and processes and, dare I say, a few quirks. And it is awareness of these that means that cases are submitted to the right lender in the right way, using the format that each lender needs. And I will share with you an example, and as I say, some that we've seen. And then finally, I want to share with you some of the things that we're doing as a lender to try and help you to minimize those delays and make the application process much more efficient. So we'll look at the system, how it reacts to some of the details that you input, and what things are in place for you. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay. So first of all, let's have a quick look at the system. So the process with HSBC is the first part is to do an illustration, followed by a full but soft footprint dip. This means the full application is easy and simple, requiring only a few additional pieces of information. Once the case is submitted, the valuation is automatically instructed with us, where an AVM has not been successful. A task is created within the system for our ID and VA team to complete the checks needed, and for our customer due diligence team to also do their checks. But only when a document is attached to the case submission is a task created in our underwriting queue for them to start working. So any delay in uploading documents will delay your case getting in front of an underwriter. We built the system to identify documents needed based on how you key the application itself. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So for example, where you would key basic income only on a case, the system will ask for the most recent payslip. That's all we need, one payslip to confirm basic income. However, if you key variable income, then it will trigger a request within the documents on the case to say we are going to require either 3 payslips for monthly overtime and commissions, 4 payslips for quarterly, or 2 bonus payments for any annual payments that are made. Any missing documents where it's not attached under the document request on the system will trigger automatic chasers to you until these are either provided, so something is attached to that document request, or indeed the underwriter does pick up the case and identifies that particular document isn't needed. What's key to say though is the system is clever, but it's not a genius. So it won't know to request things that require further explanation. So an example of that is where you have allowances on a payslip. Now we include those as part of the basic income, which is great. Standard allowances such as car allowance, London waiting, etc. We know they're guaranteed, they're ongoing, and one payslip would suffice for that. However, we get it. Lots of people have different types of allowances, and it's not always clear what those relate to. So in those scenarios, even though you've keyed it under the basic income, which is the right thing to do, we are going to come back to you and ask for those 3 payslips. So what I would say is just think about the case. How have you come to the income? Would I need the 3 payslips in that scenario? Other examples might include things where you've had a customer who's had a recent pay rise. If you give me just the latest payslip, that's obviously not going to reflect the pay rise. But the system is not going to say, please include the pay rise letter. Okay, so it is thinking about what do I need to evidence anything slightly out of the norm. Another one that we come up against is fixed term contracts, and we require a P60 on those. But it will only trigger the request for the P60 where you've actually ticked in the application to say they're either an agency worker or on a fixed term contract. And of course, where it's not provided, not triggered, that means the underwriter will need to come back to you and potentially cause some more delays on your cases. Next slide, please. So here is a recent example of a case submission. Based on the application that was keyed, the system requested the documents, but unfortunately, in this scenario, the broker didn't have all the documents available. Perhaps they were not totally familiar with what the lender required, the processes, and everything else. Yep. Don't know what happened there. Apologies on the slides. So in this situation, for the let to buy, I'll just let the system catch up with me for a second. For the let to buy, the broker didn't provide evidence of the rental income, which we would ask you for an ALA letter. The buy to let costs were not included in the application. We weren't given a new KFI or mortgage offer for the new let to buy mortgage, which was being taken out. And we weren't given the director's salary evidence that we need. So no personal tax returns or P60s to evidence the director's remuneration. Next slide, please, Alex. So the case is assessed, comes in, documents were attached, albeit not all of them. So Josh, our lovely underwriter, gets the case in front of him, assesses what he can, and then we'll potentially send a message to you on the case. So here's the example message that Josh sent back to the broker. Please provide, obviously, the 2 years tax calculations and tax year overviews or P60 to evidence the salary. The KFI, as we said, was missing, and the running costs for the let to buy. He did put an explanation as to what the running cost needs to include and any other costs that could be relevant. We always give you a date at which the application will be withdrawn if we don't hear back from you. This message is obviously sent to the broker and the application is placed in the underwriter's diary. Next slide, please, Alex. So obviously the broker then gets his message. We'll assume that's a day later. And the broker or yourselves will need to respond to that message. All messages responded to on the system, on the case, using the reply button, will trigger a work item or a task for that underwriter to pick up and review the case. This is likely to be before the diary date that was set on the previous message. So it triggers it as in, there's something there, we've had a response, documents have been added, please go and look back at my case. I will just stress at this point that you can only respond to a message once. So dare I say, use your message wisely. So I've seen a few scenarios where the response is put in, I've asked the client for the documents you need, I've asked the client, I'll get back to you shortly. You won't then have the opportunity to respond to that message again. So dare I say, do use it wisely. So as I said, the brokers picked up the message and responded on the system, which is the right thing to do, and confirmed the director's salaries on the accounts. The mortgage offer for the let to buy has now been uploaded. They're going to get the ILA letter and send that in later. The mortgage payment is £300 as per the KFI, and all running costs will be covered by the tenant. Property is self-funding. As I say, that triggers that task to go to the underwriter. We can click the next slide, please, Alex. And again, that will trigger a response. And the underwriter will then pick up your message. Now, in this scenario, Josh is responding back. And what he said is, we require the tax returns and the tax year overviews because there's more than one director. Now, I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with limited company accounts, and the director's remuneration or salary is included. And that's great. When they own 100% of the business, we can quite clearly see that must be that salary. But where there are multiple directors, I can't work that out. We can't work that out. So we do require some additional documentation in that scenario. So in this case, Josh, our underwriter, had to come back and again reiterate the need for the tax documents or P60s. We obviously acknowledge that the ILA letter is on its way, and we obviously need that again to complete the assessment. We also acknowledge that, and we understand that most lenders will just treat buy-to-lets as self-funding. For everyone that knows us, we are so much better than that, and we use the gross income less the costs. This helps out for a number of things, including the affordability and income multiples. But nevertheless, in this scenario, it was quite clear that the broker was not familiar with how HSBC treat this. We can't just treat it as self-funding as per the broker's message. So we had to go back again and insist the costs be confirmed. Next slide, please. So again, that message is obviously sent through to the broker. And we all know what happens. The case is now getting urgent. Yeah, every case is urgent, I know. But this one is getting particularly urgent. The broker is also getting, dare I say, a little bit frustrated. He's now had 2 messages basically asking for the same thing, and we're unable to complete the assessment. So what does a BDM do, or get their deputy or administrators to do? Phone the BDM. So now we've got a call going into the BDM. The BDM can take some time, go through the case, and explain exactly what's needed and why. And then, of course, we can provide the documents needed. Nothing is difficult to obtain in what we've asked for, and they are provided and attached to the case. Now, a lot of time we're asked for escalations on the back of cases becoming urgent. I just wanted to highlight, of course, we wouldn't want to see anyone homeless. So where it's a purchase application, if you can provide confirmation from the solicitor that exchange and completion is imminent, literally within the next 5 days, then of course we will escalate things for you. But you, again, what I would say is please do the escalation where it's absolutely needed. But of course we will escalate where we need to. So next slide, the responses have all been provided through. So another 48 hours before Josh is able to pick up the case again and is able to complete his assessment. If the broker had known the requirements up front and all the documents had been provided at the outset, this application would have been approved in a matter of days, taking some of the stress out of that house move or remortgage. Essentially, what could have been a 3 working days to offer turned into a minimum in this scenario of 8 days. And that's assuming everyone responded relatively quickly. And what I would ask is, would this client recommend you to friends and family? Next slide. So there are a lot of common errors that we see on this slide to talk about, but I just wanted to highlight some of the main ones. As we've already covered today, let to buy cases and my existing buy to let cases cause most of the delays. Mostly by not declaring that they've got buy to lets in the first place, missing off the running costs, the mortgage payments, including the net income when we work on the gross income. So there's a lot around that piece of work. So what I would say is, if it's something you or your advisors that you work with are not familiar with, please reach out to your BDM and we can certainly run through that. We get the same with our second residentials. So similar things apply. We need to include the running costs. We need to include mortgages. And again, these quite often can be missed. Even yesterday, so I was out visiting a firm yesterday, had a case where student loan had been missed off the application. Now, student loans are not considered a loan in terms of when you key it on the application. We do require the payment to be included within the other expenditure. And it's one of those things that people can miss off. The scenario I had yesterday, and I hope they're not on the call, was the student loan was over £650 a month, which had quite an impact on the available borrowing to that customer. Now, in the scenario, that case then started declining for affordability. And we've had to work with the underwriter to come up with a maximum loan for that client. So that's caused lots of delays, lots of stress for that customer, having to try and raise some extra deposit because that wasn't included at the outset. Childcare, that's another one that we see a lot of. So childcare needs to be either included, of course, if they've got childcare costs, but also actually what causes a lot of the delays is where there isn't. So quite often you may find that your customer has their grandparents looking after the child, and that's absolutely fine. So there are no costs. But where you've got a dependent on an application, and obviously we know the age of that child, we can't really just assume there is no childcare and is something that we will need to check. My advice would always be pop a little note on to say grandparents, auntie, uncle, whatever, looks after the children. And may I say, one of the most common with this one is people on maternity leave. So they've just had a baby. Obviously, there's no childcare right here, right now, because they're still at home. But actually, what are the future plans when they return to work? Assuming we're doing an application based on them returning to work. So tell us, what's the childcare going to be? Add a note. Credit commitments possibly is one that I get mostly frustrated with. And I know it's difficult. Your customers, if you ask me what was the balance on my credit card right here, right now, today, I probably couldn't tell you. But it is so important that we include all credit commitments, not only because this can affect the affordability, but it can impact credit scoring when things are not disclosed. So my advice to you is to get their credit reports where possible and make sure everything is keyed as accurately as possible in the application. Now, we can exclude credit cards, for example, where they are being repaid in full every single month, subject to criteria. So again, little hint and tip there. If you are doing that, we are going to need to see the last 3 months credit card statements to evidence they pay it off every single month in full. That's not going to be a trigger document requirement on submission. So where you are using that part of the policy, please provide the extra documents. Another big one we see is interest only. The repayment strategy is not clear. So within the application process, you can add a repayment strategy, but you can also add multiple. So you could be using ad hoc, sale of property, investment, savings. everything. It doesn't have to be one repayment strategy, but it is important that every single strategy that you're using is keyed. Twofold. One, to make sure we understand the case and we can assess it, but also that information is put on the KFI, so it is important and part of the advice program process that the repayment strategy is accurate. We use ad hoc as an interest-only repayment strategy, which is pretty unique in the market. I think it's absolutely fabulous, and again, if you're not clear or familiar with that, please reach out to us. But part of that process is the ad hoc payment needs to be included within the expenditure on the application. And I have to say that probably is one of the ones that can be frustrating, where it's missing or incorrect. So again, that's something to check when you're doing the interest-only option with your customers. I think I've got time for a couple more. So source of deposit, foreign national requires own deposit with us. So make sure this is evidenced. And probably another big one is the story. Tell us the story about a case. So you've got the note section at the end, or you can attach a document if needed to explain the customer's situation. Most common stories that we would ask for is things like customers who are living overseas buying in the UK. Why are you buying in the UK? What's the connection? Why are you moving 200 miles from where you live now? Why is the year-to-date income so massively different on the pay slips that we could see? For self-employed, why is your net profit reducing? In fact, why is it increased? Give us a bit of a story. If you've asked the question, and chances are you already have, just tell us. It will help us complete that underwriting much quicker. Marriage certificates, maiden names, bank statements, everything else. If we see another name, we're going to need that marriage certificate. And again, the system's not going to know that, so please remember to attach that. And as I've already alluded to, incorrectly keying cases causes document requests to trigger inaccurately. I've already covered off the fixed term contract, where they're keyed as potentially permanent. Foreign nationals being keyed as having indefinite leave to remain, when that's not the case. So as I say, uploading notes at the point of submission can tell the underwriter everything they need to know about a case. And the other one that's really useful is if you have got some quirky income, maybe put a note alongside with your calculations so that the underwriter can see where you've come from. Okay, next slide. So what are we doing to support you? We've amended our employment categories to ensure the correct category is selected, triggering the correct document request. If you can move on a slide for me, Ab. So as you can see here, we've added in 2 self-employed options, one being a limited company, one being a sole trader. A limited company, because we use salary and net profit, we're going to need accounts. Sole traders and partnerships, we're going to need the tax returns. So by selecting the correct one, the document request within the application will mirror the application that you're doing. Next slide, please, Alex. We have multiple contact options for our broker support team, and please use them where doubt exists. So as you can see, we've got our chat with us functionality, as well as being able to call us. And for your high value cases, there is a dedicated line, but also using the same number, choosing option 5. Next slide, please, Alex. And we're also delighted to be able to say that every single broker that is registered with us has a dedicated, allocated BDM. And we pride ourselves on being able to do that. This could be a field-based BDM for people that are happy for us to come and see them, or a telephone BDM where this is most appropriate for you. We also send regular communications to all our registered brokers about criteria changes. And the final thing to finish on is we are encouraging our underwriters to call you to discuss cases and requirements where possible. So my massive one takeaway, if it's only one, from today is that you go and update the contact information on your registration. Our underwriters work from home or they work in an office. They don't have direct dials to get back through to them, so it can be challenging. So where possible, when they are trying to call you, we will try every number that is recorded on your registration to try and get that case resolved there and then on the phone to get, but for us to do that, we need all your available contact numbers. So that's it from me. Anna, if I could hand back to you.
Hi, Laura. Thanks so much for that presentation. We have got quite a few questions coming in, which is a really good sign.
Oh dear.
Questions about responses, the reply function, because some people have said that sometimes there isn't a reply function, and I suppose the question is, in what instances might that be the case, and is there something that HSBC might look at just to ensure that there always is a reply function?
So the system is actually built that the underwriter can give you the option of replying or not. So if it's just information, so if we send you a message to say the valuation's back and it's fine, we don't put a reply on something like that. Now, we are all human. Yeah, there's no AIs on this call today. So with that process, I'm not going to say the underwriter might not forget to hit you can reply to me. I'm not going to say we're perfect. But in the main, you should be able, it should trigger a reply option. If there isn't a reply option and you do need to talk to us or get some notes through to the underwriter, as I've already alluded to, we've got a broker support team. We've obviously got the chat with us and they can add notes or get messages through to your underwriter.
Fantastic. And I've got another question about the foreign nationals. Just to reiterate, when you said that clients need to have a deposit bank account with HSBC, is that correct?
No. So it must be their own funds. So overseas customers, or any customer really needs a UK bank account to pay the mortgage from, the direct debit details for absolute clarity there. Doesn't have to be with HSBC, it just needs to be a UK bank account. For some reason, we like people who we lend money to pay us back. So, we do need some direct debit details. When I was talking about foreign nationals, what I was alluding to was that they need the deposit to be from their own resources as opposed to a gift. And again, we would need evidence that it is their own resources, as that's within the specific policy.
That makes a lot of sense. Another question we have is, with HSBC specifically, is there a way to have an admin login, meaning that brokers don't just get the updates, but also the administrators do as well?
Oh, absolutely. So when you register as a broker, you can go in again under the profile. If you're already registered, you can actually add a deputy or an admin. So deputy has full access, can do absolutely everything that a broker can do. Admin is more limited, so notes and attaching documents, whereas, as I say, a deputy can key cases, key the dip for you. Okay, so you choose what's most appropriate for you. That will trigger an email through to the admin, and they can go in and register. Now, that admin can be for multiple brokers, and when they go into the system, they can choose the broker that they are dealing with, and it will bring up their cases. So it's a really fantastic process, actually. And I would say that not a lot of people know that. I'm going to do my Michael Caine impression. That's very underutilized within the system. But they can also trigger another email address for notifications on cases. And again, that can be a personal email, or you may have a group admin function with a group email. That can also be used. But again, if you're unsure, reach out to the broker support team or your BDM, and we'll certainly help you get that set up.
Great. And I think we have time. Actually, I think we have just run out of time. But if we didn't get to your questions, what we'll do is we have them all in the back end, and then we can do our best to respond to you guys. And
Thank you so much for tuning into this session. Thank you, Laura, for a very informative presentation, and see you all again at 11 for our next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.